Welcome to the very first episode of Tall Talk Times, a podcast made by tall people for tall people. I'm Letty Saunders.
And I'm Tom Garner. And Letty, I must say, I'm very excited about this first podcast.
Yeah, as am I. I mean, so much has gone into this behind the scenes, and it's exciting. We get to talk about tall stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess for the listeners who are unfamiliar with Tall Talk Times, what are its aims?
The aims of Tall Talk Times. Well, ideally, we will be connecting tall people. We're talking about tall people problems. We have a Facebook group for Tall Talk Times, and many different issues do pop up. And we will be discussing those issues. But really, it's connecting tall minds. It's a positive tall community, sharing information to assist tall members, hosting events. Oh, yeah, Tom.
Yes.
Going to be doing some in-person events.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
A monthly pub meet in London to start.
Mm-hmm.
We have, I'll tell you about it later in the show.
Later on, Letty, later, yes. I like the emphasis on the word tall here.
Yeah, it's nothing to shy away from. This is the safe space to talk about tall stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Tom.
Fantastic. No, me too. Yeah. And so just to let the listeners know what we're going to do. So every week we are going to split every episode into segments. So our first segment will be a historical segment called Giants of History. The third segment will be about tall topics. And finally, we will wrap up with events that are going on with Tall Talk Times that you can come along and attend if you so wish.
Fab.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so really, I think we should probably have a little go with the history part, because
Yes.
I didn't realise that there were so many people, in the past that was just tall.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think people assume that everybody in the past was shorter, and as a tall guy myself, I'm 6'6" plus. I don't actually know my true height. I'm a little bit scared of what the result might be.
We will get the tape measure.
Yeah,
We will measure you, Tom.
Yeah. But I should say as well, people assume that people were shorter back then, but actually in my other life I'm a freelance journalist for history magazines,
Right.
so that's my background. And so I thought for this podcast I would combine the two into a lovely segment called Giants of History. So every week we will focus on people from around the world who were tall but contributed in a major way. So I think, Letty, is it time to delve into Giants of History?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Go.
There we go. What a wonderful jingle. All right. So Giants of History is where we will explore the lives of famous tall people from the past. And for our very episode, Letty,
Yeah.
I thought we'd discuss somebody that we'd all recognise or we've at least heard of.
Really?
Yeah. So brace yourself. So our very first Giant of History is Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favourites.
Yeah, let's big up the applause for good old Abe. Yeah, that'll do. So let's give him a potted biography. So he's born in Kentucky in 1809, and Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States of America, and he was president during 1861 to 65. Now, for our purposes, Lincoln was 6 feet 4 inches.
Oh, he's taller than me.
Yeah. Not as tall as me, but then not many people are.
I'm 6'3", so only be an inch taller than me.
Oh, there you go. Well, maybe you and him would have got along famously. So 6'4", for those who work in metric, that's 193 centimetres. And Lincoln, despite being a 19th century president, he remains the tallest commander-in-chief of the USA in American history. So to give you a quick contrast, the current president, Joe Biden, he's a mere 6 feet tall.
Oh, no.
No
That's the
applause.
wrong one.
No applause. He's shorter.
No, absolutely, because he wouldn't be allowed into our group.
He would not, indeed. You have to be 6 foot. As a male, you have to be 6'2" and over to join Tall Talk Times.
So, Mr. Biden.
Well, all I can say, Letty, is you are not being invited to the White House anytime
No,
soon.
President Biden would not invite me, but I think maybe President Lincoln would.
I think so. So I think we'll talk about his height a bit later on, but I think we should put Lincoln's life into context. So he is recognized as not just the tallest, but he's one of the greatest presidents in American history. He's the guy that led the United States through the American Civil War, which lasted virtually the entirety of his time in office.
Wow.
So that was 1861 to 1865 as well. So what that Civil War was about, he was fighting against the breakaway Confederate states of the South. But what he managed to do was to defeat the Confederacy, preserve the Union of the United States, and crucially, he abolished slavery, which was the key cause of the war.
Brilliant.
I know. So those are hefty achievements. But in addition to all of that, despite the fact that America was at war with itself, Lincoln was able to also expand the power of the federal government, and he modernized the American economy. And these are hefty achievements when you consider that it was the bloodiest war in American history with over 1 million casualties.
Wow.
That's insane. That is far more than...
Crazy.
Yes, more than the both World Wars and Vietnam and Korea combined. I've found some shocking figures. The American Civil War cost 620,000 dead soldiers and 50,000 civilians, and then the rest were extremely badly wounded. Often you see terrible pictures of amputees, for example. It was a truly hideous time in American history. But despite all that, Lincoln would rise above it. He's remembered not just for his achievements, but also his oratory. This includes the Gettysburg Address of 1863, where he defended the purpose of American democracy. The most famous line is that America should provide a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it's still remembered as one of the greatest speeches of all time. Now, sadly, Lincoln also has the bleak distinction of being the first president to be assassinated when he was shot and killed by John Wilkes Booth in a theatre performance in 1865.
Was that a short man? Was that jealousy?
I don't think height came into it.
No?
No.
Oh,
I think
okay.
no. Wilkes was very much a supporter of the South, and he was infuriated that the South had been defeated, and that's why he shot Lincoln. But no, I don't think height came into it whatsoever. For our podcast, let's focus a little bit on Lincoln's appearance.
Yeah, because all of this amazing stuff that he did, and yet we just remember him as being really tall.
Very, very tall. But it's not. I don't think it's entirely to do with his height. I mean, firstly, there's lots of photographs of Lincoln, and what you see is a man with a very distinctive face. He's got craggy features. He's got a big bushy beard without the moustache. He's quite, in his own words, he described himself as quite an odd-looking fellow. That's how he described himself.
Okay.
But his height is also a massive factor, if you pardon the expression. So there's a really famous photograph of Lincoln, and he's with his generals in the Union Army, and he stands head and shoulders above all of them. And this is often, and I think what accentuates his height is that he used to wear a large stovepipe hat.
Yes.
Yeah,
the hat.
Yeah, so a stovepipe hat, for those who aren't familiar, it's a kind of top hat. It's almost like a cartoon of what a top hat should be.
It's an extra tall top hat.
Extra tall. So if you imagine, if he's 6'4", I think with his stovepipe hat, he'd be nudging 7 foot in height.
Wow. But beautifully tall people coming all different heights. We have some members that are over 7 foot tall.
Yeah, of course.
Because we're 5'10" for women and 6'2" for men as the minimum.
Yeah.
No maximum.
No. There's no cut-off points.
No cut-off points.
Yeah. So of course Lincoln would be in with or without his hat. But I've got a fun fact about his hat. He would keep copies of his speeches on the inside. So when he'd go up to a podium, he would take his hat off and there'd be a bit of paper on top of his head.
Wow.
Yeah.
In his top hat?
In his top hat. Most people would keep it in their pocket, but no, he keeps it in his hat. Yeah.
I suppose that would be secure, really. Nobody would be able to jump up, knock his hat off, take his script.
I guess so, but what if it was a windy day and the hat flew away and then his script would likewise be blown into the gusty wind? But, he was a bit of an eccentric man, what can I say? And people recognised him as quite eccentric, not just from his demeanour, but his height was a large part of it. I found a very interesting quote by a journalist at the time, and he described Lincoln as, and I quote, a tall, lank, lean man considerably over 6 feet in height, with stooping shoulders, long pendulous arms, terminating in hands of extraordinary dimensions, which, however, were far exceeded in proportion by his feet.
Wow. But he was all in proportion, though, Tom.
Yes.
You know, we're tall, we have large feet, large hands. If we had small feet, we'd fall over.
We would fall over. So no, Lincoln is perfectly in proportion. And you've bounced onto my next point. Because Lincoln was quite unusual looking, many historians, particularly medical historians, believe that Lincoln may have had a condition called Marfan syndrome.
Okay.
So you might have heard of Marfan's.
Yeah, I have heard of Marfan's. It's a connective tissue disease.
That's right, yes. And it can make people very tall, but not in a bulky way, like very tall and thin. And they can often have long, thin faces and internal problems like heart issues and leg pain, for instance.
Yeah.
Now, it's known that Lincoln had a very tall mother, but there's no definitive consensus on whether he actually had Marfan syndrome, particularly because he had no known vision or heart problems.
Okay, well, if anybody wants to explore Marfan's or any other height-related condition, health condition, we do have, I don't know if you've had a look on the Facebook site, Tom, there's a section on there, or Health File. It's not medical advice, it's just some pointers to put you in touch with the right organisation that would be able to answer your queries should you consider that's something.
That's very useful. Yeah, it's good that we have resources for that kind of thing.
Sure, just some pointers, and also you can open up a discussion on the group to see if any other members have experience, which we do have a few.
Yeah, it's so he was a big man in all senses of the word, was Abraham Lincoln. So yeah, a little sad coda, unfortunately, when he was assassinated, he didn't die instantly. He was taken to a house opposite the theatre where he was shot. And because he was so tall, he didn't fit in the bed.
Wow.
So they couldn't lay him out properly.
That's those blasted foot ends, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hate foot ends on beds.
I hate them too.
And one of the top things we're going to write a list of pet peeves for tall people, and foot ends are going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, foot ends get my goat, totally.
Let's not. There's that. Just for foot ends.
But we can have the applause for just tall people in general. Do you want to do another tall jingle? Just for the tall people out there.
Just for tall people out there.
This is for you.
For me. The look on Tom's face as I press the sound pads, he's
You are having far too much fun, I suspect.
I know. so much fun. All this tech, and I get to talk to beautifully tall people. So hey, what can I say?
What can you say? So that was the end of Giants of History, Letty. So now it's time for Tool Topics. What is our Tool Topic for our very first episode?
Our Tool Topic is just to say thank you for the amazing response to Tool Talk Times.
Yeah.
We've had so many people join the Facebook group recently, giving us some amazing feedback and contributions. It's not just reading, it's people putting up their introductions, their stories, sharing advice, be it clothes, working out tips, looking after our back. That's the thing, you see, with the Facebook group. You put a topic up and you think that this is going to be more popular than that. And then it was just how do you look after your backs, guys?
Yeah.
How do you look after your back, Tom?
How to look after my back? Now, that is a good question. I mean, as a tall person, as a teenager, I knew that it was coming as an adult, back problems. So, age 30, I started to go to yoga classes.
That works for you?
That works for me, but I stopped doing that. And more recently, I've taken up Pilates. And that really, really works, because I did have some back issues this time last year. And the physiotherapist said to me, because of your height, why don't you try Pilates? And I was a bit skeptical, thinking, will it work? But it was like a Damascene moment. I went,
really?
Yeah. I did the Pilates class, and it was hard work. It's not like yoga. If you haven't done Pilates before, it's a bit more hardcore than that.
Okay.
But when I came out, my back felt a lot better, and since then it's just improved.
Wow, so you didn't have to go through like a pain barrier or anything like that?
No, because the teacher will kind of encourage you to go at your own pace. They don't force you to do anything at the time.
Sorry to interrupt, but we do actually have a Pilates tutor in our group. Yeah, we do.
So maybe Pilates tutor, if you're out there and you're listening to this,
you know who you are, you gorgeous
we would
woman.
like to hear from you. If you have any tips for us tallies about how to handle back pain in particular, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, maybe for a future episode we could have an interview. But
that gives you a good sense of the range of people that we have joining in the group. And I think, from what I can tell, it's from across the world.
Yeah, we've got members from all over the world: Australia, America, Germany, Ireland. Although I know why a lot of the Irish ladies have joined.
Why is that?
Because we have a trip over there, but I'll tell you about that later.
Is that a little secret?
Yeah.
A little.
We're working on it behind the scenes, all carefully. But no, going back to the Facebook group is predominantly it is a positive community for tall people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great because we can tie that in with the people that come to our meets, and when they walk through the door and I say, "Hi, you must be looking for us. You're beautifully tall."
Yes. I think it's important that we emphasise how much of a positive thing it is to be tall, because I think the society at large assumes that it's a good thing, but as many of us will know, including myself, I'm not sure about you, Letty, but I've often found it to be a negative experience. But really, it is that sense of we have to embrace our height.
We can't do anything about our height.
Exactly. There's not much we can do about it. So
different being a tall woman. We'll get on to that. But Tom, I told you kind of reacted. You blushed when I said to you, "Tom, you're beautifully tall."
Yes. So when I met you for the first time, you did say, "Oh, you're beautifully tall," and of course, I was thrilled to accept a compliment like that. That was fantastic. But there was that subconscious part of my brain that was sort of going, "What? Really? Beautifully tall?"
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. It's great. My mum actually came up with that. Bless her. She's no longer with us.
Yeah.
But she said, "Letty, look, you're 6'3". You're beautifully tall. Stand up, shoulders back. The worst thing is for you to be stooping and apologize. You don't need to apologise for being tall."
No, of course not. I think stooping is a funny one. I think a lot of us tallies will stoop. I don't think sometimes it's an insecurity thing. I think sometimes it's literally a sense of trying to fit in with our peers who are below us, so to
well,
speak.
there's that, and there's the other thing, which is we are on show all the time.
Yes, we are.
We can't be wallflowers.
There is nowhere for a tall person to hide in a crowd. It's unless they're sat down, of course. But it's
then still, if you're, obviously tall people come in all different proportions. If you're taller in the body, that may still be the case.
Yeah, of course. So I think for you to say that every tall person is beautifully tall, that is just such a very affirming, positive thing that we need to hold on to.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably mention it every week.
So, how many more beautifully tall people have joined the Facebook group?
Exactly. Yeah.
How many more beautifully tall people
turn it into
the podcast?
Turn it into a catchphrase or a slogan.
Yeah, but Tom, can I ask you a question about your height?
Yeah.
Tom doesn't know how tall he is, but he knows he's very tall.
Yes.
That's fine. I'm not going to get the tape measure out just yet, but I will. So, did your height come in sort of, people say, were you a tall baby? How old were you before you realised that you were a lot taller than your peers?
I've always had a conception that I was taller than my peers. So to give you an example, aged at the tender age of 5, there's a picture of me in my reception class photograph, and I'm on the back row in the middle, and I look taller than everyone else. I didn't have a sudden growth spurt where I suddenly sprang from a short boy into a tall man.
Okay.
It was a very gradual process. I mean, I think, if memory serves me correctly, I reached 6 foot by the age of 13, and I was my full height that I am now at 16. So it was a bit of it. So I was a fully grown man, but with a baby face in a school uniform.
He still has a baby face, listeners. Very handsome with a baby face.
Well, that's very kind of you. But no, so I always had a conception. How about you, Letty?
I think it was sort of around about 8. I seem to recall being aware of my height. At 5, I probably looked 8. And so much pressure is put on our tall children to perform older than their years,
Yeah.
So that's something to be mindful of. But no, when I was a teenager, I used to hide behind my hand, literally do the whole as was Lady Diana Spencer, coquettish.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, seriously.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to believe now, listeners, but I was incredibly shy. And wherever I went, everybody would point out my height as though it was a fact that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
So I think I stopped growing when I was about 18 and 6'3", yeah.
It's funny, really, like that. Those teenage years are difficult for so many reasons. I remember as a teenager, I went to a doctor because I was so tall, and this was age 16, and I did say to him, will I stop growing now? Because I seem to be very, very tall. And he said, well, you could keep growing until you're 21. And that was just something that I did not want to hear, because I thought it was difficult enough being the height I was then, at least 6'6". So it was. So I spent 5 years in a bit of a uneasy terror, thinking, "Oh God, am I going to get any bigger? Is life going to get more uncomfortable?" But for some reason, my body thought, "Yeah, enough," and stopped.
So you would have appreciated a Facebook group of other tall people, so you would know that you're not alone, Tom.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. There were times, definitely, when it was very isolating. And of course, as a tall person, you have to present as confident. But when you're a teenager, the last thing you often are is confident. So I think if there'd been a support group to say, hey, it's fine, there are others like you out there, and come and join us, come and chat about what it's like, we can relate, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, and empowering each other to stand up. When you're together, I mean, I can remember I went to a National Trust with you, Tom, and we had a walk around, and normally Tom's like, oh, God, everyone's going to look at me. But you know what? When there's more than one of you,
yes,
and you're both tall, they don't say anything.
No, they often, all the comments I get on the street is the vast majority of the time it's when I'm on my own.
Easy pickings.
Easy pickings. But if you're in a group, there's safety in numbers.
Yeah. Walking around. And that's when we get together and we're in a group of tall people and we're socialising. Yeah. People are really very positive about it.
Yeah. What sort of things do they say?
Well, they wish they had our height.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I wish I had your height.
Yeah.
And the difficulty on getting trousers for the 36-inch inside leg. Yeah, you can have that difficulty too. Which is a lot better nowadays than it used to be.
Yes. And there's also, so I've had that myself, and sometimes I say to them, yeah, you don't want this, but that's the wrong answer, because it's fine to be this height.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
But then I'm older now, and I've kind of accepted my height. I'm not reacting to comments. Actually, I did yesterday. Went out to lunch. Yeah.
Oh dear. I think it's time for an anecdote.
Okay. Okay. So I was out for lunch with 3 beautifully tall friends. Mm-hmm. And as I went past, this group of chaps said, "She's tall." Yeah. And as I walked past them, I said, "Yeah, and she can hear." And they just went bright red, because they hadn't computed that their voice would get all the way up here.
No, it's a straight. I think for a lot of people, they're being rude, but it seems to be an automatic reflex, and they can't seem to stop. Most people, if they see someone who looks a bit different, you don't say it out loud. You kind of you can acknowledge it internally, but you don't, out of politeness, because no one wants to be judged on their appearance. But I think when you're tall, people seem to think they've got carte blanche to say what they like. And it's, it's, but we're going to change that.
Yeah, we're going to be very positive.
Yes.
And help empower each other.
Exactly.
And the rest of the community that want to join us.
With the posthumous help of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, with his help. Thank you, Abe.
Yeah.
We're going to go on to our next section now, Tom.
Yes. So our next section is events. And I believe, Letty, you've got an event coming up in soon. What's going on?
Wow. We have an event at a pub on the 16th of February. It's in town, as in London. Mm-hmm. I've been told off by Tom not to say that, but it's a southern thing. Sorry.
London's a city, not a town. This much must be obvious.
So anyway, on the 16th of February, we're going to meet a group of us beautifully tall people. We'll be there, including Tom.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'll be there.
And actually, there's this historian, Kieran, who's a part of our group, who would like to talk to you about Longshanks.
Oh, Edward the First. Ah.
Who is actually a relative of the co-founder, Nat Daniels.
Daniels, my word.
I know, there's so much. You'll have to interview him.
Ed Longshanks as well. Yes, he'd definitely get in the club.
Yeah.
But he's a topic for another episode.
He is a topic.
All to himself.
All to himself. Because there were tall people. We are hidden, but yet in plain view.
Yes, the irony.
But yeah, I chose this bar in London. Because it's got a really fabulous selection of gins.
Really?
Yeah.
Gin is so popular for some reason. It didn't used to be. It used to be an old lady drink. Did gin?
Oh, careful you!
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about you. This is a generic thing.
No, it's not. It's not Mother's Ruin either.
No,
I'm a fabulous mother.
Is it a gin palace? Dare I say?
It is a gin palace. I think you really need to sort of. They do ales and other alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages as well.
Yes.
But for those that adore gin, for those beautifully tall people,
oh yes,
there's a plethora of gins.
Well, that sounds delightful. So from what time can people expect you to be there? And me, of course.
From 6 p.m.
6 p.m. That's right.
On Friday the 16th of February, so not long now. And then we will have one every single month. We're just going to see how everybody feels with this venue before we either stay with the same venue or move off somewhere else. And then I have a save the date, actually, Tom.
Oh yes, what's to save the date?
Save the date for the Belfast trip.
Get your diaries out, everybody.
Yes, do. And Tom can't do it because he's jet setting. Where are you off to, Tom?
I'm going to Italy for a wedding. So I mean, I do not say this as though this is normal. I rarely go abroad. So, and it sounds terribly pretentious going, oh yeah, I'm going to Tuscany for a wedding.
Well, I'm jealous, but actually, I'll be in Belfast with lots
which
of
is just as beautiful in a different way.
In a different way. I'm so excited to go though, because we're going with a group of beautifully tall people.
Exactly.
And we've hired our Airbnb and other people are booking their hotels. And so everyone's doing their own hotel booking and we've got an itinerary. So we will be going over there. Botanic Gardens, bit of Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
Studio thrown in.
Yeah. Titanic going out? Are you going there?
There will be a good few people doing the Titanic. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, I've been to Belfast before and the Titanic Museum is a fantastic experience. So if you're into history, as I am, then you simply must go. But no, I'm very envious that I can't be there. But not so envious because I'll be in Italy. So, yeah.
But there'll be other events coming up. I mean, I touched upon National Trust walks and things. Yeah. So they won't all be centred around alcohol. Some of them, as my lovely friend Hilary knows, and my lovely friend Naomi, are centred around coffee.
Very civilised.
And cake. Because we like coffee and cake.
Oh, coffee and cake. You're making me hungry now. Silly me.
But
we're meant to be recording. Now I want to go into the kitchen and get some food.
Oh, you can't. Well, maybe in a tick. But
yes.
Tom, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for bringing your tall positivity to our podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for doing the same. It's been a very fun episode to record.
And save the date is the 9th to the 12th of May for those that are still listening.
Yes, for still listening. And who want to go to Belfast, not Italy. That's just me.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you, everyone, for joining us at Tall Talk Times podcast. Same time next week, every single week.
Thanks very much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.